Welcome to the Propreneur Podcast, where we help practice owners become better entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Dino Watt. And welcome once again, everybody, to the Propreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Dino Watt, and thank you for joining us for another episode here where we are bringing you the best practices possible for you and your business to help it grow, to help you expand and scale your business in every way possible. So today is another one of our expert conversations where we're bringing in somebody who has really nothing to do with our industry, but I saw what he does and I went, oh, we got to have a conversation, because I know that I often go to my clients' websites or even potential clients' websites to check them out, to kind of see what they're doing. And the loading of those websites is usually pretty snailish on a lot of them. So when I saw Dan and I belong to a mastermind group called the Genius Network. I've mentioned it before on this show over the last 100 and some odd episodes. And he gave what's called a 10-minute talk. He talked all about how to get your pages to load faster, how to optimize them, but in a different way, in a way that I think more people need to know about. So I invited him to be on the show, and he is gracing us with his presence today. Again, before we get on to the interview, everybody, remember to share this podcast with your friends and colleagues. Let them know why you listen to the show and invite them to subscribe as well. So that being said, Dan Wilkinson, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you, because like I said, I think it's important for people to really understand this information. You're coming to us all the way from over, as they say, on the other side of the pond.
That's right. Yeah.
Thank you, B, for
Over
being
in
here.
sunny England, it's dark at the moment, and yeah, we've had a bit of rain today. So,
Well, that's weird. Rain in England, man, it must be
Beautiful.
an off season for you. Well, Dan, one of the things that we do on this show at the beginning of every show is we get people's stories, because I believe stories are what connects everyone. So if you would just give us the quick version of what is your story and how did you get to doing what you're doing?
Yeah, well, I remember very clearly the day was it was the 9th of July 2018, and I was working as an analytics consultant for a number of clients, and one of them overnight started losing money, and we didn't know why to begin with. I can then fast forward to another date, which was the 15th of September 2018. Was the moment I found out why, and that was on the first date that I mentioned. His page load time, or the time it takes to load his website, had gone up by 1 second, and they'd gone from making money to losing money.
Wow.
And the owner installed some software on the website, didn't like it, uninstalled it, but they left their code in there and it slowed the website down, is basically what happened. We then spent the next 6 months trying to find a page speed optimizer somewhere, and we couldn't find a single one. We interviewed maybe 75 developers and
Wow.
people that we thought somebody should know how to do this. And then in the end, I had to say, I'll have a crack at this myself.
Wow.
And I quite liked it. My skills were quite transferable. The first website that I optimized was that one. It took me nearly 4 months. The second one took me nearly 3 months.
And then down and down.
And now
and
we're down
it
to
went.
about 2 days.
Wow. Wow.
So.
I wanted to ask you, I wrote a note here saying, let's clarify for some of our listeners here. So someone adds a software or a plugin or something to their website because they're doing a DIY, if you will, or they even allow other people to add some sort of plug, maybe a chat bot or something like that to their website. You said that when this person did that, they left the code behind. So are you saying that when you delete something off of your website, it's not necessarily gone, it's still running in the background?
It depends. If you look at most WordPress sites, when you install a plugin, the plugins are the apps that you can download from the store there. They tend to be contained in their own folder. So if you remove them, the whole thing gets removed. Okay. This was in Shopify, and the app developers can have a bit more control over where their code gets installed into the themes. Some are better than others. Not necessarily code will be left behind, but some app providers will put a lot of code into the theme, and that will potentially slow the site down. It's wrong to say that it will slow it down, because it might not, but potentially it will. But I think one of the worst things you can do is try lots of things on 7-day trials and just, see what happens. Because
is that what it does?
yeah, well, we're going to hit a bad one eventually. It's like
Yeah.
you're playing Russian roulette with it.
Oh, interesting. Wow, interesting. Well, what you said was that code increased the download speed by 1 second.
The time, it increased the time.
Increased
by
the time.
1 second. Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
by 1 second.
Yeah.
So that decreased his money. Now, I'm assuming that he had some sort of store or something on his site, or was it just because of that old rule where people make a decision within 3 seconds or whatever?
Well, this is the thing: is it's how to phrase it properly. So you want a fast website primarily for user experiences. Users love being on a faster website, and we've tracked a lot of people on a lot of slow websites and on a lot of fast websites, and we noticed that their browsing behavior, or the way that they go through a website, this applies to e-commerce stores. It also applies to information sites or lead generation sites. People tend to go browsing around more and looking at information because they don't have that fear of getting stuck somewhere where they can't progress. And the definition of being stuck is anything longer than 3 seconds. So what the algorithms are doing inside of the ad network, so Facebook, Google, Twitter, or wherever you're getting your traffic from, is they are amplifying this. They are saying, okay, that website's slow, our users won't like it, so we're not going to send them there. That website's fast, so we'll send all our users there. So it skews it completely. So it's not just about user experience, it's about the networks allowing their users to visit the site. And we've tracked some amazing cases where a difference of half a second could bring double the traffic or half the traffic in the opposite direction.
And when you say traffic, you're talking about organic traffic, not the traffic that people are buying ads for or paid traffic, right?
Yeah.
Both.
All kinds of traffic, yeah.
Wow.
And that's what's coming in May this year. May last year, Google changed their reporting tool, which is called Page Speed Insights. They made an amendment to that, which brings in some extra metrics that they called the Core Web Vitals. My first impression of it was, this is such a stupid name. And then I'm thinking Core Web Vitals, and this is going to be core, it's for the web, and it's vital. So we have to start taking notice. 1 year anniversary, it'll be May this year. They will be using that as their first and foremost ranking factor for organic traffic and for Google Ads. So that makes it quite important.
Yeah, because in this show, we do talk mostly to private practice owners. So let's just say I have my website for my, Dino Watt's orthodontic company, and I have my website that I've been paying my team, this company that made the website. They host my website. They are supposedly do some SEO optimization that I really don't know that much about because I'm an orthodontist and I don't pay attention to that. They just tell me it's working, and so I believe them.
Yeah.
And if the speeds to which it actually refreshes anyway or downloads in the first place, they always tell me they're trying to get that as fast as they can. But if it's not actually optimized to the full extent, then in May, Google is going to throttle me back, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Or if it's loading really quickly, it'll put you to the front of the queue.
That's true. Let's look at the positive of that, right? So if you're making it load quickly,
the opportunity in the matter is definitely there for the taking, I guess.
Yeah, because I'll tell you that the reason why I wanted to have you on the show is because when you were doing the presentation for us, and then you had us all go and bring up your website and then say, now refresh it and see if you can tell it was refreshed, and it didn't even blink. right? I've been
That's
on
right.
Facebook before. Matter of fact, more often than not, my Facebook, I'm just trying to go to another page on Facebook and it's, 5, 6, 7, 10-second delay. I've been trying to pull up what would be very popular websites, whether it be YouTube or Yahoo, and they take a long time to download. So I
Mm.
think in some cases people think, well, if Yahoo's slow, then in my case is slow, or my thing that's faster than that, then that's good for me. We don't all know what a fast speed is. I didn't believe, if you would have told me beforehand that you could get a refresh on your page that you can't even tell it blinked or can't tell it refreshed, I probably wouldn't have believed you. What is being pushed out there as a normal refresh page speed? What is that? What like if you were a normal guy out there optimizing my website?
This can vary. My experience is telling me that the average page load speed out there at the moment will be somewhere about 5 or 6 seconds, which is better than it was. It was probably
Mhm.
more like 8 or 9 seconds, and that's okay. If you go and wait 5 seconds for the first page to load, the second page will more than likely load a little bit faster. If the algorithms are saying if it's over 2.9 seconds, we're not going to send much traffic to it, then that's a huge amount of
Big problem.
potential money left on the table, or it's someone else is getting that traffic because they always send 100% of their traffic somewhere.
Okay.
And we're seeing cases where if you're kind of like a quarter of a second either side of 3 seconds can make a big difference.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'm wondering too, then, is this going to be something, Dan, where people who might not be very good at optimizing, or maybe they have a business in optimizing,
mm,
but they're not as skilled as you and looking for and seeing those things. And maybe they're just someone who has a client on retainer, if you will, like they're paying their monthly fee, whatever. And Google comes out with this in May, and then they use that as like, hey, we need to optimize your site even more. So you need to pay us more so we can actually optimize this more.
mm.
Is that something that you could see happening or is already happening?
To be honest with you, I don't think Google's going to go shouting at the rooftops that this is happening. They've
Oh,
they've they've
interesting.
made announcements already. We know it's coming. If you look for the information and know to look for the information, you can find the information very very easily. But it's not coming into common. It's not coming into
Mm,
common sight. You don't just stumble across the information. And the biggest confusing factor I see is what the symptoms are for it, and that is you wonder where your ad impressions went. Why aren't there as many people looking anymore? Or
mm.
people have got fed up with my advert. I've got ad fatigue, so I need to rewrite all my campaigns. Those are the kind of telltale signs when you just notice that your reach is disintegrating. That's the big
Wow.
telltale sign.
So what would make my website slow down? Like, is it like, I would think videos, I would think maybe big graphics or good images.
Yeah. Well, firstly, Google's reclassified how they're measuring it. So
Okay.
you can actually have a really fast website and still get a poor score, because one of my clients demonstrated that just recently.
Huh.
We had a 1.5 second loading site, and Google saying that scores 14 out of 100. And we're like, how is this possible?
Wow.
But
Yeah.
still, we have to. Google's looking for the main image. Most websites I come across have a big image at the top of the homepage, right?
Mhm.
Or a
Yeah.
slideshow, or a
Sure.
video, or a big
Yep.
chunky headline. Google wants that on the screen fully loaded within 2.5 seconds of the link being pressed. And that's
Wow.
often a tall order. Um, so
After
that's
the
that's
link
what they're
being
looking for.
pressed.
Yeah, that's to pass the core web vitals. They don't want to
Okay.
see movement, and they want you to stop running scripts in the background. They want the browser to come to a stop quite quickly. Those are the three things that we need to do to please Google completely. So getting 100, my site scores 100 out of 100. I mean, got to practice what you preach sometimes. I do
Sure.
believe, and to get that to stay at 100, we've had to move a lot of the way that the website's engineered in order to do that in a very unnatural way, I would say. But we're seeing scores of 98, 97, 96 in
Wow.
Shopify or in WordPress or in multiple different platforms. So we can get very close to that. But yeah, it's really about understanding how Google's going to be measuring it moving forward, and it's customer focused, it's user experience focused.
So if you're saying that like companies like Spotify or Shopify and these other companies that are usually heavily graphic, have a lot of things running in the background, if those can get up to 98%, then is it just knowing what parts of the website, what parts of the code that you want to optimize so that you can do that? Because it's not a matter of, oh, you need to have not as a beautiful picture or whatever it is, a graphic. Is that what it is? Because here's why I asked this question, because I worry that if people really don't know this or don't know the way of doing this, then the SEO person that they hired or the web optimization person they hired is going to be kind of throwing spaghetti up against the wall to see what actually sticks and not really knowing. And that's going to leave the client sitting there going like, well, they don't know what they're doing, but they're the professionals. And so we're trying other things out and not getting the results that they want.
Yeah, 100%. It's about recognizing when you run the report with Google, they actually tell you in the report what is that element that's got to load really quickly.
Interesting.
So you can go and look that up. That can change depending, but it normally sticks with the same one. So if it's an image, it will say image tag and name the data that goes in there, so you can tell which image it is. You can get a preload link for that image and load that much sooner in the process, so it's there ready to be displayed. And that's probably the best way to combat that. But do you know, I see this issue all the time, and that is you're using a theme in WordPress, and the theme's been designed a certain way to give you lots of options so that you have more creative control over how your website's going to look. One way of having a big header image is to load an entire slideshow plugin and then limit it to one slide. That's an awful lot of code going into the header image, and
for only one slide.
Exactly. Yeah.
That makes sense. So you have this whole code going in, but you're not optimizing the code. You're not maximizing
the image.
It.
Exactly. The image has to wait for the JavaScript to run to build the plugin, and then it can load the image, and that can take more time than you would like. So one thing I've been doing is setting that image as a background image to that whole area. You can do that with CSS. The web developer will definitely be able to do that. And also just remove all the JavaScript from the slideshow if you're showing just one image, and then have an image tag there instead, filling the space. That will load much faster.
Okay, so talk to me real fast though about, because this just came to my head, is like I get so frustrated. My internet speed. Tell me the difference between the internet speed and then the download speed, or the website refresh speed, if you will. Because there's one that I have no control over my website speed. My web provider, will give me whatever I pay for, but it doesn't always, there's that, and then there's that. So I think we need to have a distinction between those two.
So sure, if I certainly noticed when my internet dips out, because everyone starts jumping around on Zoom and the pages start slowing right down, and I think, what's going on?
Right.
I hate it when it happens when I'm actually measuring speed, because I start thinking we've done something wrong with the website.
Right.
But yeah, when you're at home and you're connected to your Wi-Fi, normally your internet speed's ample to be loading things correctly. So in that same Google PageSpeed Insights report, you can select desktop or mobile reporting, and the desktop usually scores much higher. The reason that usually scores much higher is that the desktop report is more forgiving over transfer speeds and things like that, because most people will be on broadband. When you go to mobile, Google tests this on a slow 3G network, and then they give you a score based on that. So
Oh, really?
they try and load your site into a mobile phone size screen on a slow throttled network speed. And then and that's why when you can look at your website and go, well, it just loaded in 1 second. Then I go to Google and they're telling me it took 14 seconds to load that image. And what they're saying is that will take 14 seconds to load that image on an iPhone with a slow 3G signal.
Wow.
And that's kind of what the report's telling you, because the mobile, it's mobile first world as far as Google's concerned.
And so the control that you are able to create from that is the optimizing the site itself so that when it is on not 3G, it'll load faster.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have three kind of founding principles to the whole operation.
Okay.
And I teach this to everybody that I work with, and that is, number one, if it's not putting pixels on the screen, I don't mean tracking pixels, I mean colors onto the screen for you to view, then don't load it at the start of the page load. So if you go to Facebook and you get the tracking script for tracking your Facebook ads, and it says stick this code in the header of the website, it's just the wrong place to put it. And
Interesting.
Analytics will do the same thing.
I'm sure mine is up there like that. I guarantee you mine is in there right now. Wow.
It's the logical place to put it, and they all the networks tell you to put it there.
Absolutely.
Because
so where do you put it?
Somewhere else. A better place is in the footer, and what I advise everybody to do is Google the phrase load event listener JavaScript. So it's load event listener JavaScript, and you'll be able to copy and paste a wrapper for them all so that it will not run the script until the page is loaded, and that will move it out of the way of the rendering of the page.
Okay, good. So there's a workaround for that. Okay, number two.
Number two is then functionality, and if you do have a slider, you kind of want the first image up quickly. Then you take care of all of Google's concerns, and then it's okay for that to start sliding 4 or 5 seconds after the page started loading. That's not a performance issue. And then once you have functionality, that's then the right time to be loading tracking scripts and chat boxes and modal pop-ups and Instagram.
And if you layer those on top of those things, if you layer those on top of the others, then it's not as bad. It's just when they're all jumbled together.
Yeah. It's a really good example is like a Klaviyo form or an email pop-up form, when someone's been on your site for 30 seconds and you go, hey, why don't you give me your email address? That doesn't need to load for 30 seconds because it's not going to pop up until then.
Got it. So if that's
often if those codes are in the header, loading at the very, very start of
so that's slowing it down. I wonder. I know a ton of doctors listening to this have the chat pop up, right? The bot chat pop up, and I bet that loads in the header too. But it doesn't like give people a moment to breathe and see your site before you pop up that little thing.
Yeah. And, I have never needed the chat to click the chat icon immediately. To say, hey, this is taking 3 seconds to load. Where are you? I need answers,
Right. Exactly.
It's okay for that to kind of come into view after 5 or 6 seconds, that kind of thing. There's lots of them. There's like, there's live chat, there's Zopin, Zendesk, there's Facebook Messenger, Gorgeous, lots of them. And one of those apps I just mentioned, I was talking to the owner at a conference about 2 years ago, and he said, ours doesn't slow the site down because here's our JavaScript. And he showed me this little block of JavaScript that was 5 lines. And I had to explain to him, that's not JavaScript, that's a link. That's telling the computer to load all of your JavaScript. And when I showed him on his computer, he was amazed that the app that he created actually was nearly half a megabyte in size.
Wow.
And I said that has to load after everything else, because otherwise, pages won't
Slowing it
scroll
down.
properly.
Wow. Okay, so no pixels that aren't necessary, functionality, and what's number 3?
Number 3 is then load those things like modal pop-ups.
Oh, okay.
Really, you want the pixels on the screen, and then you want the CPU of the browser to go quiet for 1 second. Google love that. You can't get a 90 plus page speed score without doing that, and that's called the first input delay. What many people know this might be called is time to interactive metric. Then that ensures that is kept down to milliseconds, not seconds. I see so many that are like time to interactive 28 seconds. That's because things didn't stop loading for that long.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we need 1 second of silence. That seems to be what the algorithm is watching out for. So get pixels on the screen, and you want to run the JavaScript that makes everything functional. Silence for 1 second, and then it's okay to run Google Analytics scripts and Facebook scripts.
All that other stuff in there. Wow.
The question I get asked is, well, how does Analytics know how long the page load took if you don't load it till afterwards? Because Analytics doesn't time it. It's all in the browser window.
Interesting.
Goes and reads the data once it's loaded. So.
Wow. So I want everybody to do this. If you're at home or you're next to a computer or a even on their phone, I want you to go to pagespeedoptimize.com, and I want you to pull it up, because I talked about this earlier. I talked about this is the thing that surprised and impressed me. And once you pull it up, like obviously you only need 5 seconds to be completely done, right? Like to know that it has a pause. But then I want you to refresh that page and check it out and see what happens. And you probably won't even notice the blink that you normally get. The blink, you know how it all refreshes again? It doesn't do that. Matter of fact, I have mine on here.
I have had people tell me that for some reason my site breaks the refresh button.
It breaks the refresh button. That's awesome.
No,
I mean, no, I know it doesn't, but I know that they'll say that. But I mean, I'm sitting here it's fascinating. It's refreshed because you do see the blink, but it's a blink. It's a blink faster than you blink.
It's the green bullet points that they're SVG icons. So they give a very quick blink, but everything else kind of stays static.
It's crazy. It's so amazing to see it. And listen, I don't geek out too much about websites. I have no clue about coding or any of that type of stuff. But what I do know is when I go to a website and it is, I mean, this is obviously first world problems. I was selling computers at Circuit City in 1994 when we were like, check out this download speed. And like, you'd have Intuit who would send us the little disk that would show us that it's downloading and, a whole page in 10 seconds as opposed to the competitors.
You can see it coming out one line
yes,
at a time.
One line at a time. Don't put too big of pictures on there. You want to make sure. I mean, so these are obviously first world problems, but right now that's the challenge. Right now, everybody's up online. Everybody is trying to put their best face forward for virtual appointments or whatever it might be. And if you don't pay attention, you're going to get slowed down. And here now, it's not just a matter of preference anymore. It's a matter of necessity for what Google's going to do in May.
Wow. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
This is crazy. I mean, it's actually almost kind of like fun just to see myself. Like I'm just refreshing over and over again on here because it's okay. So Dan, what do people need to do and be aware of moving forward? Like we know that we've got Google coming out with the new rules, if you will. We know that they need to be careful on what's in the header and what is actually up on the page. But how can they, test to see if this is something that they need to do? And by the way, does this work for, I asked you this question when I was texting you back and forth, does this work for every type of site? Like what if it's a very heavily video site?
Yeah, I had one client who had a thank you page, and he couldn't figure out why he was missing all the pixel events. And I took a look at it, and he had 147 videos on this page, and nobody scrolls all the way to the bottom. We reduced that page load time from 45 seconds. The Facebook pixel was firing after about 27 seconds, and nobody was hanging around. And we got that load down to 1.25 seconds, and then the pixel fired every single time. So yeah, it's this is much more about handling of things rather than just, can I have it there? It's my job to say to all of my clients, yes, you can have it looking exactly how you want it. We're going to make it fast. But there's all kinds of strategies for having videos in the pages without them slowing the page down. But going to YouTube, clicking on the embed button, copying and pasting the code that's there will slow your site down. But what you can do is add lazy loading to it, and that's free scripts that you can just add to copy and paste into your site and add a tag into the iframe, and you're good.
So let's just say I'm someone who obviously needs to or wants to make my site faster. Do I need to now know, because I know the fear of this that people are going to have is, do I now need to fire my SEO guys, my website designers, all that stuff, and hire you, or do you work in conjunction with them?
We tend to work alongside web developers quite frequently.
Okay.
We would make the worst web developers in the world because we don't design. We're analytics measurement people.
Got it.
And
Cool.
I was asked that recently. Can you take over our web development? And I'm saying we would be very expensive for that, and we wouldn't be very good.
Expensive and not good.
Which is an important distinction because many people tell me that I know more than web developers about coding, and I say only about very specific things, because only in regards to
your lane.
And exactly, yeah.
That's really, I listen, I think that's really smart of you to like just know the lane, and that way you can actually help these web developers get better. So I would actually say to anybody listening that has a web developer that you've created a relationship with, hopefully that you enjoy, have them connect with Dan, and that way they can work alongside. And by the way, you'd be doing them a favor because I'm sure they're going to get educated on a few things that they need to know about.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow, that's great. So, Dan, do you think one of the biggest challenges is that people just don't understand what optimization really is?
I think so, yeah, because optimization usually, in my opinion, usually means that you're looking at something to optimize it. You're usually making it lighter, or you're taking things that are not required from something. So if you're optimizing a Google Ads account, you're removing things that are costing money, not making money. So leave the more profitable parts in there. You optimize a bonsai tree by removing any dead leaves and branches from it, as an analogy. I had an analogy that I used the other day, and I thought I'm going to use that again. And that is, you go to the supermarket, you go to the store to buy a very specific item. And when you get there, you see that there's only one checkout open, and there's a queue all the way up the aisle to the back of the store. The chances are you get that one item and you go and join the queue because you know it's going to take you a while to get back out. You want to pay for the item, or if it's not important to you, you might even put the item back and then leave the store without buying anything. That's what people do on websites. But if the store's empty and all the checkouts are open, and you don't have that fear of being trapped, you're likely to fill your basket up.
Right. Yeah. What else do I need? Yeah.
While I'm here. That's right.
Yeah, that's true.
That's probably the best way of explaining user behavior on a website. I think that one thing that everybody should do is get Cloudflare on their website. They have a free level, and they seem to go up in zeros. So they have a $20 a month level, which I highly recommend. That has a lot of good features. Then they have a $200 a month level, and then they have enterprise $2,000 a month level. But the higher level ones they include features that you can do otherwise with plugins or by being more manually active. But the $20 plugin, the $20 version is very, very good, but there is a free version. But Cloudflare Resolve, when somebody clicks on a link to your website, there's a whole load of activity that goes on behind that link click to connect to where the files are for the website. Cloudflare is the fastest in the world at resolving that bit and getting through, security layers and handshakes with the servers and things like that. So Cloudflare is definitely worth implementing on your site, and if it's for free or $20 a month, it's worth doing. So that's usually the first thing that everybody should do. The second thing is to consider whether you really are using that Twitter AdWords account, the Twitter ads account, or whether you are using your I don't want to name any names. I got into trouble recently, but the software that records people on your site or do heat maps and things like that. Those kind of programs are quite good for adding a few hundred milliseconds to your page load time.
So they weigh it down.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah. And because they install all kinds of software to enable that user tracking in order to feed the information back.
Are those type of softwares something that can still be used as long as you have things optimized, or they're just in general a bit of a challenge?
The trick I said earlier on about putting your tracking scripts inside of a window listener to make sure that they don't fire until the page is finished loading. You can put those inside those as well. They go in, and there's very little difference between the scripts that you install for an email platform to one of those platforms that do heat maps and your tracking scripts. They all look very similar, and they're all asynchronous loading scripts that could be placed inside of one of those functions.
Wow. Okay. Is that the last one?
That the last
is that
one?
You said two things. You said two things to do. I don't know if there's a third one.
Oh, okay, yeah. So another one is that there is a HTML tag that you can use called a preload tag, and it's if you Google the phrase preload HTML link, you will find 1,000,001 websites that will give you lots of examples. I recommend that you Google one for fonts, because the fonts ones are slightly more complicated, but you can preload your fonts so that you don't get text flicker, or you don't get those kind of issues kind of affect your page speed score. And you can preload images, you can preload JavaScript files, you can preload CSS files. When you preload a resource, it stops it from being a render blocking resource. So you can have a preload link for a CSS file, and then you can load the CSS file as normal. If you don't do that, the chances are your Google PageSpeed Insights report is going to say, remove render blocking resources. 75, not 95. And you look at what the render blocking resource is, and it's your whole style sheet.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And you go, well,
you want to make sure you separate those two. Yeah.
So you can preload those. Yeah. It's quite good. Google's quite good at saying preload key requests, which usually is fonts from Google Fonts. You can get the URL and add them to a preload link. And that was something I wish I learned sooner.
But now you know, so that's good that you can share that with everybody else.
Yeah, and it's easy, super easy to implement as well. That can go into a custom scripts box in the header somewhere in your WordPress theme or whichever platform.
So what I would suggest is that any of my docs, because I'm a big fan of, we've talked a lot about the who, not how types of scenario, right? And, docs, everything that Dan has been talking about, I want you to share with your website developer, your SEO guy, and they can get this stuff done faster. We're not giving you these suggestions for you to go out and figure out how to do this, but this is stuff that you can do them. On that
So
note,
I was a bit stupid, I think, going back 3 years ago. I kind of think I don't know how I had the confidence to see it through, but
now you
quite
know.
testing.
But thank you for all of your torture. So now we can learn from that. We can gain from that. And on that note, like in the fact of, I do talk about the who, not hows. Dan, you do this for companies on the regular, and it doesn't matter what the business is, to help people optimize their pages. What's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
Literally, I really like people entering into the system that we have, so that on our website you can click a button and find yourself on my Calendly schedule, or
Cool.
a team member, so you can book a call. And
so at pagespeedoptimize.com, go to the contact button and connect there.
Yeah, there's quite a few of the buttons on there that say schedule a call, and
there are actually. That's good. Give them that call to action. Well, I mean, I want to really encourage everybody to do that, because not only just the proof is in the pudding, right? You're eating your own cooking, right? In the sense of, you go up to that site and you see it, and it's just a difference, and compare your site. And I think your story at the very beginning is really valuable for people to understand. It's a 1 second difference that can make the difference in people wanting to stay on your site. I like that analogy of being stuck in that store. I want to be in an open store. I want to know that when I'm going around sites, I'm not going to be bogged down, held captive at any one of your pages. And I want you to feel like it's an experience I want to continue going through. So I think that's really powerful.
And and to that point, I've had a lot of clients tell me once we'd started that we interviewed 3 or 4 PageSpeed guys. And I wasn't aware there was anyone else, but they said, we went with you because your score was 100, which clearly demonstrated you know what you're doing.
That's
so
right.
It's important for us to it's like everybody wants to go to a clean dentist, or hygienic.
Sure.
So it's one thing I will say is my experience with web developers. If you pass my points onto web developers, don't be surprised if you get resistance, because most of what I say is kind of against the grain as to what web developers have been taught to do in many ways. That's not their fault. The purpose of a web developer is to be creative and to create something stunning and beautiful. Often that does come with a performance, a negativity to performance, but many of the suggestions I make are kind of against the grain or unorthodox to web development environments, and just say, just try it, see what it comes out at, and if it doesn't work, that's fine. Take it back off.
Right.
Again. And that should win them. That should win them over.
So when somebody does reach out to their web developer and they give them a little bit of pushback, do we just say, you know what, let's get you on a call with Dan or Dan's team so that they can explain it to you? Or because I'm going to explain it in a very, very elementary way for me, talking to my web designer, but to be able to have them reach out to you,
we are actually going to be
easier.
pushing a lot of content out on our website coming soon.
Cool.
We are just taking on a content manager to be pushing stuff out, because we get a lot of referrals. We haven't had to market very much, and this is the year that we want to start pushing stuff out onto the internet a lot more. So yeah, if we get a lot of people booking calls with us for tips, we probably wouldn't have enough time on the call to cover very many of them. They're more for a website strategic review. But yeah, for sure, I'm always happy to talk about it. I enjoy.
That's awesome.
It's the one subject in the world I can be one of the smarter people. Start talking to me about football, and I quickly.
Yeah, me too. Don't talk. No, me neither. No idea. Football or soccer, either one. Well, that's awesome. Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining us today on the show, because I just thought this was very important. I often talk to people about, their best practices in their business or how they're creating better cultures. But when I saw you give this presentation, I went, this is something people need to know about,
Yeah.
especially in my industry. So thank you very much.
Yeah. So a closing thought for you,
Yeah,
if that's
that'd be
okay,
great. Yeah,
is people don't know about this, and
right.
in the Genius Network, we had one of the members stand up and address everybody at the end during question time, and he said, "Look, we're doing the wrong thing. Nobody's talking about this. Nobody knows
Hmm.
what we're talking about." And as May happens, it will happen quietly, and if you can take advantage of it, you'll get a big lift in all things traffic wise. But meanwhile, the rest of the people that don't know, they'll slowly sink. There's a lot of websites will start finding that not overnight, but their traffic will start decaying, and they won't know
Yeah.
why. But it will gather momentum, and people will start to understand what's going on. So it's a good time right now to take advantage of what's coming.
Well, that's why I think you're exactly correct of taking the time now to do it, because the frustration is going to come.
Mm,
And before people realize what's happening, there's going to be a lot of frustration. And then there's going to be a rush of people who probably don't know what they're doing, saying they know what they're doing, or can fix one. I mean, listen, I would not be surprised if there'd be a group of people out there that would take even just the 3 or 4 tips that you gave us about the different softwares to look up, or the HTMLs or the JavaScripts or whatever, and literally build a business just around those few things. Like, oh, or at least charge more to their current clients, where, oh, I need to do this thing and I got to get that thing. And this is stuff you just gave us for free on how to do it. But people will do that because that's the way the market works. Why
mm.
not get it from somebody that's going to give you the full advantage of knowing what they're doing and put this on your website?
And an average page speed score is not 75, it's not 85 or even 65. It's around about 45. That's the
Wow.
average. And you consider that some platforms are faster than others. The average for a
Mm-hmm.
Shopify store is about 14.
Wow.
WordPress probably more like 30. And so by employing some of those tactics, I'm not at all affiliated with WP Rocket, but that's my favorite caching plugin for WordPress. I think that does a good job. So you apply a few of those strategies, and you'll find that the page speed score can lift quite a significant way. And it's about beating the average, particularly people in your industry, in your area. There is Google's looking at things on a local, national, international levels. So.
You just made me think of something. I had an aha, because of course it's right in front of you, right? So you don't think about it until you have to, which is my best friend's wife has a Shopify store, which is very popular. She's grown it big. But I'm gonna reach out to her right after we get done with this call. Be like, you need to go check this out, because if you can do it specifically for the Shopify sites, then that's so important for people. And I know that a lot of my listeners don't have Shopify sites, but if you do have one, or somebody who does, why not get it optimized at 14, like a 14 score? I don't even know anything what I'm talking about, but I know that 14 is not good out of 100. That's what I do know. Wow.
Right, and all of the platforms, they all output the same code to the browser. The browser still only takes HTML, so that's why this works on all platforms.
Right.
Yeah,
Awesome. Great stuff, Dan. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really, really do appreciate it.
you're welcome.
Well, everybody, I
Glad to
hope
be
that
here.
you took, yeah, it's a pleasure for sure. I hope everybody took some great notes. I hope you wrote down the different tips that Dan gave us, and definitely do yourself a favor before May, before this all attacks. Don't be calling me, next year saying, "Hey, I didn't know about this, and I wish I would have listened to this episode sooner." Go and reach out to Dan and get your page speed optimized. You can reach out to him at pagespeedoptimize.com and make sure you can get the information you need. It's worth just a phone call or a conversation for sure. So thank you again, everybody, for listening to the Propreneur podcast. As always, we're here to bring you the best practices possible in your practice and help you be more proactive, productive, and profitable in all areas of your life and business. Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much again for listening to the Propreneur podcast. We really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed already, please make sure you do so. Also, if you feel like you might be a good fit for our podcast as a guest or know somebody who you think would be, go ahead and email us at dino@dinowatt.com. Again, thanks for support. We'll see you on the next episode.